It's over to Mr. Dave Schaller. Please go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the UFC 162 media call. UFC 162 presented by Bud Light, Saturday, July 6th from the MGM Grand Garden Arena, live on pay-per-view. Today we are joined on the call by UFC middleweight champion Anderson Silva, who today will be assisted by Derek Lee, and number one contender Chris Weidman. UFC President Dana White is unable to join the call today, so we'll have Anderson and Weidman, and at this time we will open the floor for questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Schaller. Ladies and gentlemen, if you would like to ask a question, please press *1 on your telephone keypad. Once again, it is *1 for questions. If you're using a speakerphone, please be sure your mute function is turned off to allow your signal to reach our equipment. Once again, *1 for questions. I'll pause for just a moment.
And we can go ahead and start. Go ahead, I'm sorry. Nicholas Cunningham from Ola newspaper.
Hi, my first question is actually for Anderson. I know at the beginning of this, you weren't that thrilled to fight Weidman. Has that changed over the last few months?
No início você não queria enfrentar o Weidman. Alguma coisa mudou nos últimos meses? Você quer enfrentar ele agora?
Não mudou nada, não. Luta normal.
No, nothing's changed. A fight's a fight, and this is another fight.
Okay, thank you. And for Chris, a quick one. Obviously, this is probably the most media attention you've got with the fight before. How are you handling that?
No, I'm handling it pretty good. It hasn't actually been too bad in the last couple of weeks. We didn't have too much media, and it's starting to pick up now, but you know, I kind of was prepared for it mentally, and it's just another part of the job, and it's just trying to enjoy it.
I'll sneak a real quick follow-up. I know that I asked Anderson, you know, at the beginning he wasn't into this fight, and now it seems like he is a little more. What about you? Was that kind of frustrating at the beginning to kind of have your name pushed over, and now you're getting your due?
I mean, yeah. I mean, right after the Munoz fight, it was frustrating to hear that they weren't interested in me. But you know, it is what it is. I guess when the UFC decided to make the fight happen, it happened, and you know, everything happens for a reason. God had a plan, and you know, it worked out. I'm real excited for the fight. You know, and you know, so I'm not really thinking back into the past and worrying about how frustrated I was. You know, I kind of gave up on that, and then things kind of worked out well. So I'm happy.
Good. All right. Well, thank you both. Good luck to you guys.
All right, thanks.
Our next question comes from Dave Diebert with Post Media News.
Hi, thank you guys for the time. Anderson, there's always talk about you know, where you rank in terms of the greatest of all time, and you know, pound for pound great, all that stuff. How important is it for you to be considered you know, one of the all-time greats, or maybe the all-time great? So how much do you consider your legacy at this point?
Qual a importância para você de ser considerado dos melhores de todos os tempos, ou o melhor de todos os tempos? Qual a importância do teu legado?
Eu acho que é dar bons exemplos para os novos atletas, para as crianças que são fãs do UFC, e fazer sempre o meu trabalho bem feito, independente de vitória e derrota. Acho que o que tem que ser feito dentro do esporte como resultado de vitória, eu já fiz. Agora é fazer o que eu amo, que é lutar e deixar bons exemplos.
I think what's most important is to set good examples, and for those kids that watch the UFC and the kids that are coming up, and whatever I should have already done in the sport, I've done. Win or lose, I've already done everything there is to do, and now it's just a matter of doing what I love to do.
All right. Who do you consider? You know, I don't know, top 3, top 5, whatever. Who do you consider the greatest mixed martial artist of all time?
Quem você acha que são os top 5, os 5 melhores de todos os tempos?
Bom, minha opinião, é número 1, Brain Culture, Chuck Liddell, Royce Gracie.
Yeah, in my opinion, BJ Penn is number 1, then Randy Couture, Chuck Liddell, and Hoist Gracie.
Okay. Just one more for Anderson, and this is a random one. But do you have any specific memories of your very first UFC fight against Chris Weidman, either before the fight, coming into it, or your win over Weidman? You know, any lasting memories from that night?
Da tua primeira luta no UFC com Weidman, tem alguma coisa alguma memória que ficou com você, alguma coisa que marcou antes, depois, durante a luta?
Tem, né, cara? Foi a primeira luta dentro da UFC, né? Então, foi uma luta importante para minha carreira naquele momento. E eu agradeço o Chris Weidman de ter me dado a oportunidade de lutar com ele, ao Pena, ao Silva.
Yeah, there's always a lot of memories, and that was my debut in the UFC, so there's a lot involved in that fight. It was a huge step in my career at the time, and I can only thank Chris Weidman and Dana and Joe Silva for making that fight happen.
Okay. All right, that's good. I'll jump out and back in. Thanks, guys.
And our next question is from Kevin Richardson with the Baltimore Sun.
Thank you guys for having me. I have a question first for Chris. Chris, who have you brought in to work with to try to emulate Anderson Silva's style?
We brought in a couple different guys for the first time in my career. I'd say the main guy that did a great job emulating him with the stand-up, the best he could was Wonderboy, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Kind of just getting used to it, a quicker guy. He's a little smaller, but he has unorthodox striking, and it was, definitely good preparation for this fight. And then I had a bunch of really good kickboxers, some undefeated kickboxers that were just living in New York City that we used. We used a couple-time national champion boxer for the stand-up. And then we had Renzo Gracie's academy. We have, a lot of good jiu-jitsu guys who, could kind of emulate, the best they could some of stuff that Anderson does on the ground, too. So I think we did the best we could, with this camp preparing for Anderson.
My next question is, what do you take from the first Shell Sonnen fight? Because I doubt if you can take anything from the second one, but what do you take from the first Shell Sonnen fight that you can use in this fight?
I mean, the obvious answer, to me?
Yes, to Chris.
Oh, okay. I mean, the obvious answer is, the takedowns, trying to, expose him with the wrestling. But we're totally different fighters. I believe I could beat him, before that fight, but there's, he stays relaxed, and, if you're up tense and he's relaxed, eventually he's going to, be able to get off what he wants. So I think the main thing I learned from that is, I thought Chael was a little bit too uptight and tense when he got the takedowns, and I think it paid off for Anderson to stay relaxed the whole entire fight because he was able to have the energy to knock that triangle in the fifth round, and that's all props go to Anderson on that.
Okay, this question here for Anderson, and Anderson, and this is a little off topic, but how legit is your challenge to Roy Jones Jr., and do you really would like to fight him?
Qual é quando você quer lutar com o Roy Jones Jr., é de verdade essa história?
Claro que é. Claro. Depois da luta do Chris Weidman, independente do resultado, eu gostaria de lutar com o Roy Jones. Ele já se pronunciou e disse que quer lutar, então acho que seria uma grande luta.
Of course I want to fight him, and maybe after this fight against Weidman, regardless of the outcome, I would love to fight him, and he's already said that he'd fight me also, so that's something I'd really like to happen.
The one last question, this is for Anderson. Anderson, do you train to capitalize on your opponent's weaknesses, or do you train to have them fight your style when you get in the cage?
Você treina para capitalizar nos erros do teu adversário ou para o cara entrar no teu jogo?
Poxa, eu treino para fazer o que eu sempre fazer de melhor, que eu faço desde criança, né? Que é lutar. Eu não me preocupo muito com o que o meu adversário vai fazer ou deixa de fazer. Né? Eu treino para sempre melhorar o que eu posso melhorar. Eu treino sempre para me superar, para melhorar o que eu tenho e não preocupado com o meu adversário. Eu acho que cada um tem um jogo, ele tem as qualidades dele, assim como ele, como outro qualquer adversário. E eu treino sempre para me satisfazer, não para satisfazer ninguém ou para ser melhor que ninguém. Eu treino para ser melhor que eu sou.
I don't really train to think about my opponent. I train to do what I do best, and I've been doing since I was a kid, which is fighting. And I train to overcome myself. I train to satisfy myself, not to satisfy anyone else. So I'm not thinking about my opponent. I'm thinking more about myself and overcoming myself and getting better at what I do.
Thank you guys both, and I look forward to seeing you fight on July the 6th.
We move next to Gareth A. Davies with the Daily Telegraph in London.
Obrigado, Anderson, Eduardo. Good evening, Chris. How are you?
Good.
Chris, could I ask you, what do you think about almost every MMA insider saying that Anderson Silva's mental strength is off the scale and puts him on a different level to every other fighter on the planet, apart from their saying John Jones?
I mean, I never really heard that as far as how strong you're saying it is, but no, I think he definitely obviously has a strong mental game. I think a lot of the guys he kind of beats before they walk in the octagon, not really because of his mental games. It's more of his performances that he put on, kind of got guys going there, worrisome and unsure about themselves. So I think his performances kind of speak for themselves and kind of draw into the minds of the guys who are going to walk in the cage with him if you're not mentally prepared and truly have confidence in yourself. So I think the main thing is to have confidence in there, and then the best guy's going to win. So I'm not letting that, mess with me at all.
Do you admire Anderson Silva?
Yeah, man. I mean, I've been definitely a big fan of Anderson's. Since I got to the sport, he was a champion. So it's a guy I've been, keeping my eye on since day one. And, just like anybody else, you gotta love the guy, watching the guy fight. He's relaxed out there, and he's done things that no one's done in the sport. So it's always a pleasure to watch, and definitely admire him.
Final question for you, Chris. If you do beat Anderson Silva, is it a logical thought process to think that you might step up and face John Jones because you will have beaten what people say are perhaps the #1 and 2 pound-for-pound fighters in the world?
I mean, I gotta beat Anderson first, and that's the first big step. And I mean, whatever the UFC fans and the UFC want to do, and what they want, the fight they want to see, I'm definitely willing to do. But I got a big task in front of me, and my job is to shine on July 6th and show the world what I can do. And I'm just real excited to do that. And then if I do end up shining, then we'll see what happens. But
thank you, Chris. And a final question for Anderson. Anderson, do you think that the pressure of next week, of such a big event, of all the media calls, of all the demands on Chris that he hasn't faced in a title fight of this magnitude before, may have a bearing on him and his mood and his mental space for next week?
Você acha que a pressão toda da imprensa, de tudo que envolve essa grande luta que ele nunca teve antes, pode ter alguma coisa em cima dele? Pode ser ruim para ele?
Olha, isso é uma grande pergunta, mas tem que ser feita para ele, né? Acho que luta é luta, independente de mídia, independente de pressão, luta é luta, né? Acho que quando você tem experiência e tem algum tempo vivendo essas situações, você acaba levando isso na maior naturalidade, mas isso é uma pergunta que tem que ser feita para ele, não para mim.
That's a great question, but you should probably ask Chris that question. And I think that regardless of the pressure and the media and everything that involves the week of the fight, when you're doing this for a while, it just becomes natural. You don't really bother with it, but that's definitely something you should ask him.
Gentlemen, you are both an incredible credit to this sport, and we're all really, really excited about next week. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, we move to Leighton Jin with the Desert Sun in Palm Springs.
Hi, thanks for hosting this. My question's for Anderson. It's outside of the octagon, but I was wondering what his thoughts are about what's going on in Brazil in regards to the protest with the World Cup. Just his general thoughts of it, because I know he's a soccer fan, and does he think this will spill over and lead into protest when the Olympics come around?
O que você acha dos protestos que estão rolando no Brasil sobre os gastos da Copa e tudo mais? Você acha que pode ter a mesma coisa sobre as Olimpíadas também?
Eu acho que o Brasil está passando por uma mudança muito grande e as pessoas estão tendo a oportunidade de exercer o seu conhecimento de causa. E é normal, é uma mudança normal. Eu acho que pra gente ter, o nosso país o Brasil é um país que tem tudo para ter um bom país para todas as pessoas, para todos os brasileiros, para os imigrantes. O que está faltando é um pouco mais de consciência dos políticos. E as pessoas estão indo às ruas e manifestando o desejo de mudança delas. Acho que isso é fundamental para o país crescer.
I think Brazil's going through some big changes right now, and people are becoming more conscious about what's going on. Brazil's got everything to become a great country for Brazilians and for immigrants, and it's just a matter of having more conscious politicians, and now people are going to the streets in Brazil and protesting it and demanding that from the government.
Does Anderson worry about making any statements in fear of, because everything's so sensitive right now? I mean, does he fear that he can't make a statement one way or another? Like, as a soccer fan, I'm sure he would want to go watch the World Cup and support Brazil, but obviously the protesters might look against that. Is that a dilemma for him?
Você sente que é tipo momento delicado, por exemplo, você ir num jogo ou você falar alguma coisa errada que quem está fazendo os protestos podem levar do jeito errado, ou que é momento delicado no Brasil para você ter uma postura?
Eu acho que eu até me pronunciei pelo meu Twitter, né, explicando exatamente o que eu achava de algumas coisas sobre o protesto. Eu acho que o protesto é válido, desde que seja um protesto pacífico, né, sem destruição né, de patrimônio público, para que a gente possa ter o resultado que a gente precisa. Acho que quando você tem conhecimento de causa, você não precisa ser violento para expressar os seus direitos, né?
Yeah, I've even pronounced on Twitter what I thought of the protests. I think they're valid as long as they're peaceful and there's no destruction of any property. And as long as people know, have a lot of knowledge of what's going on and the protests are valid, I think it's a good thing.
Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to the fight next week.
And we'll go now to Stephen Marocco with MMAJunkie.com.
Hey, question for Anderson. Wanted to ask him how realistic he thinks a fight with Roy Jones Jr. is with his contract with the UFC right now. Does he think that's actually something that's going to happen, or is it just something he'd like to do?
Com o teu contrato atual do UFC, você acha que a luta do Roy Jones é uma possibilidade ou só um sonho?
Bom, sempre tem possibilidade de várias coisas, né? É uma luta que eu sempre quis, é uma luta que eu quero muito fazer. E vamos esperar, né, os próximos capítulos aí de Anderson Silva UFC para ver o que a gente vai fazer.
Yeah, there's a lot of possibilities of different things that could happen, but that's a fight that I've always wanted. It's a fight that I still want, and we're going to have to see how everything plays out and wait for the next chapter of Anderson Silva in the UFC.
Why does he still want that fight? A lot of people think, I think most people would say Roy Jones is way past his prime as a boxer. Why is that something that still interests him?
Muitos dizem que o Roy Jones já passou do ápice dele no boxing. Por que é uma luta que você ainda quer tanto?
Eu acho que ele tem um boxe ao qual eu gostaria de me testar. E eu sempre fui fã e gostaria de me colocar à prova com ele, para ver se realmente eu tenho condições de fazer.
I feel that his boxing style is one that I'd like to test myself against. I've always been a fan of his, and I just always wanted to test myself against Roy Jones.
Okay, and then with this new 10-fight deal, he'd be 44 years old if he did the 10 fights on the new deal that he just signed. How does fighting at that age sound to him? Does he think he's going to actually fulfill this deal?
E com esse contrato de 10 lutas, ele diz que você teria 44 anos quando finalizasse as 10 lutas. Depende de quantas vezes você lutar por ano, né? Mas o que você se sente de pensar em estar lutando até essa idade?
Olha, tudo é possível, né? Tudo é possível. Vai depender muito da minha vontade de continuar fazendo isso, né? Eu tenho outros planos, tenho outras vontades. Uma delas é, como eu disse, lutar com o Roy Jones. Então, vai depender muito de como eu vou estar me sentindo, né, depois das minhas próximas lutas.
No, everything's a possibility, but it's going to come down to my willpower and my desire to still be fighting. And I have a lot of other things that I want to do. I have a lot of other desires, and one of those is fighting Roy Jones. But we're just going to have to see how things work out in the next few fights and how I feel.
And we move now to Eduardo Sobaran with O Globo.
That's a question for Anderson. Anderson, você já falou sobre os protestos, eu ia perguntar sobre isso. Eu queria saber se você pretende, ou se aproveitaria o UFC, o microfone do UFC após uma luta, para falar sobre política no Brasil.
Eu acho que esse tipo de você falar, eu acho que as pessoas vão agora ter um pouco da fé delas recompensada. É por isso que eu treinei bastante para essa luta. Quero continuar mantendo o cinturão, que a minha forma de mostrar para o Brasil quanto nós podemos e devemos fazer a nossa parte. Né? Eu acho que é isso, eu não tenho que falar muito mais sobre isso. Acho que tudo está sendo feito, né? Eu acho que o processo é válido, as pessoas estão começando a impor um pouco do direito delas de serem brasileiros, tem um pouco mais de justiça, e é isso que está acontecendo, então as mudanças acontecem, então a gente tem que torcer e rezar para que mude mesmo, para que a gente tenha um país melhor.
The question was if Anderson would take the opportunity to take the UFC microphone and speak on a protest in Brazil, and he said that what needed to be said and what needed to be done is being said and it's being done, and now it's a matter of him going in there and showing Brazilians that what you have to do is do what you have to do, and his job right now is to fight, and people have to do their job, which is to still exercise their right of being a Brazilian and go to the streets and demand the things that they're demanding. So everything that needs to be said is being said, and people are